Hello and welcome to the Mindset Mentor. I'm Tania Kolar, helping you cultivate a life you love. So, as you know, your mindset is like a muscle that needs to be strengthened and conditioned. So, this is your mindset workout. Are you ready? So, today we're going to talk about, healing, right? So, Reiki healing and new decision therapy. So it's a great way to release some of the stored trauma in the body, the stress that the body tends to hold on to, that gets in the way of living a good quality of life. Right, when we're inundated with stress, that doesn't equal a great positive life. So we want to help people to really start to release some of the tension throughout their day, but also long-standing tension that can also be stored in the body. So I want to just jump into the conversation with my guest today, who has left the corporate world. There's probably a lot of stress involved with that. She's left the corporate world to pursue a career in healing. And she actually is a Reiki master and teacher and a new decision therapy practitioner. So we're going to talk all about that. And let's say hello and welcome to Shona Lauzon. Such a pleasure to have you here, Shona.
Thanks, Tanya. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, it's my pleasure. I think that the world right now needs a lot of help, releasing a lot of anxiety, stress, tension. But the interesting thing is that, so many people are holding on to really old stress and tension and trauma that the body holds on to, which gets in the way of really living a good quality life. And it really changes the way that our brain functions when you're inundated with stress on a continual basis. So I'd love to delve into obviously what you do as a new decision therapy practitioner, and how you're helping people release some of the trauma and tension and anxiety and the buildup. But I want to actually start with you, and I'd love for you to take us on your journey, because you lived, the corporate life, and you just decided that that was no longer in alignment with really what you wanted moving forward. So let's talk about that transition and what really inspired you to pursue a career in healing.
Sure. No, I'd be happy to talk about that. So I did work in the corporate world for almost 15 years, and I did corporate training in the cosmetic industry. And for many years, I loved my job. I loved my career and I loved my work. And as I got married and I had two beautiful daughters, and my ability to really feel like I was living by my values. It became a real juggling act and a real struggle once I started a family. And I think this is a dilemma for a lot of women and also men, is trying to balance our corporate life and our career life with our family life. And so I had a really, and as time went on, my corporate job and my career were becoming less and less satisfying to me. And the sacrifices I was having to make in order to maintain the pace and maintain the level of work were just not adding up to me being a happy person at all. And so I had an unexpected conversation with a friend at a downtown patio, where he just said to me, he said, Shona, I can tell you're not happy. And he only knew a fraction of what was going on in my life. But he said, I can tell you're not happy, Shona. And he said, part of the problem is I think you believe that life is something that is happening to you, whereas you've forgotten that you're in the driver's seat and you can write a story where you're happy, or you can get off this highway, this corporate highway and everything that goes with it, and choose a different life that feels more meaningful to you and allows you to live according to your values. And it was like the penny dropped, right? Like I just was like, oh, the heavens opened. And I said, oh my gosh, he's so right. And how lucky am I that he's saying these words to me? and,
Yeah.
and I heard him, and my life was very different from that moment on.
Mm.
From that moment on,
Mhm.
something shifted for me. And I started to do the work of asking myself, what is important to me? What are my values? And how does the way I live my life reflect those values? And there were many parts of my life that weren't in alignment. And I was working in downtown Toronto. I was commuting 3 hours a day, an hour and a half in, an hour and a half back. I had very little time for my children or my husband. And it was all taking a toll. But my family was, when I listed what's important to me, my family was definitely at the top of the list, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet I wasn't living a life that showed that. So then when I'm clear about that, about what was important to me, it became very easy to make the decisions I needed to make. So I left the corporate world and I took a job closer to home. And I did take a massive pay cut to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, I don't need to have everything. I just need to have what matters.
Yeah, as a
And
priority, making
yeah,
that decision can be scary, right? But it's so rewarding. So I can imagine there was a lot of emotions connected to making that decision.
yes, there were. And I didn't make it lightly. And I didn't make it like the next day after I talked to my friend. It took me months to sort of figure out what is important to me and how can I make this work? And what am I willing to give up to have the life I say that I want? And so I did, and I adjusted to the lower income, but I gave up my cleaning lady, which gave me a chance to appreciate my own home.
Hmm.
And I got to walk my daughters to the school bus, put them on the bus, and I was there at 3:15 when they got off the school bus, and I walked home with them, and we had a snack, and I felt like I was on vacation. Like I was like this,
I love
so much
it.
so much time had opened up in my life. And I'm not going to try to say that this was an easy transition or that it was an easy decision. In many ways, it was hard, but it allowed me to reclaim these parts of my life that I just thought thought I couldn't have, or thought were always going to have to be in the background or play
Yeah.
second fiddle.
Well,
Yeah.
I think there's so many people right now listening that can absolutely relate to that and just stuck in the daily routine and really not making any changes because it's just a habitual pattern.
Mhm.
And when you can separate yourself from, the reality and just look back and say, okay, so what is important to me, to ask those great questions that you had, that clarity, I think is important because when you're stuck in the day-to-day grind and then the anxiety and the stress, it's really hard to see that and to separate that. So I think it is important to really sort of check in with yourself and have that moment of clarity, ask some really empowering questions that can create the next steps to take. Even though they're fearful, it's just good to
Mhm.
have some options because it's not fulfilling when you keep doing things that are not in alignment with what your true values are. So for you, you found that clarity that you realized how important your family was, and
Mhm.
in the situation that you had, it wasn't really allowing you to optimize your time, with them, and just getting even the 3 hours of commute time back. I mean, that really leaves a lot of beautiful time, right, that you
Mhm.
can give to your family.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's true. It is there you talked about that habitual sort of, you feel like you're on the treadmill and you don't, the way out isn't always obvious, right? You think, well, this is what I've always, I've been doing this for so many years, and what else could I do, or what would I do differently? But it just takes really that desire, the willingness to say, okay, to acknowledge I'm in charge of my life. I get to say how these next 25 years look, these next 50 years look. What do I want them to look like? Instead of being everything being right here, like sort of looking out over the horizon and saying, I can I can change my life and I can make it better for me.
So good because again, it's sort of a trap, right? When you're in the other side of that, and it can, be difficult again to see the light at the end of the
Yeah.
tunnel, so to speak, right? So now having that feeling and taking the action to leave your corporate job to stay at home more. So what was the reaction with people around you, like your husband? How did he react to that?
Well, I definitely had many conversations with him before I made this move. But he could see that I wasn't happy and that it was impacting all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And he was willing because it affected him, right? My change in income was going to impact all of us. And so that's a great question, Tanya, because you do want to know that your family, your partner is willing to make that change with you, because you do need their support in a lot of ways, even if they're just saying, yes, I believe that it's all going to work out and you have a plan and we'll adjust and we'll do it together. And so I was very blessed that was the case with my partner. And so I do think that's why it takes time. Like, you sort of having those conversations and sorting it out and saying what's important to both of us. So not just what's important to me, but for both of us, what are the key things that are not negotiable,
Yeah.
yeah.
I truly love that. And I think for some people, it's really important, to have those conversations now. You don't have to wait until you can't bear your situation anymore and then you just, act rationally, or irrationally. It's great to
Mhm.
have those conversations now, and just the what if. So what if, you can have a conversation with your other half and say, so what would you think if I did this? Right. And just see what comes up, because I think that the fear of how other people will handle it prevents us from actually taking action. But if you don't have the conversation, you're never going to know the answer to that. So it's really important to be open, to be vulnerable, and to say, hey, this is what I really want. And I would love to figure out a way that we can do this together. So what are your thoughts on that? Or whatever, just to get some sort of conversation started is really important. And I know that some of the work that you do with new decision therapy, and the Reiki as well, really sort of ties into helping to improve relationships as well overall. So I think that's really the
Mhm.
foundation, really, of great relationships, right? The communication. So being
Yeah.
open to communicating. So, and
Yeah.
what about your kids and all this? I'm sure they love to have more of mom around.
They did. It was good on so many levels for all of us.
Hmm.
And in looking back now, because I made this change, gosh, back in 2014. I left the corporate world,
Hmm.
so and into a more local job, and then eventually into the healing work that I do now. But I can just see when I look back how much better it was for us, and how there were lots of unexpected gifts in the extra time I had with them. I was calmer. I was like a different mom. I was a calmer person because I also had time for me. I had time to really um, take care of myself and think about pursuing some of my own passions and figuring out what they were. And so it had all these unexpected knock on benefits.
I
Yeah,
bet.
just opening up time. And I know you asked Tanya about, what did people think?
Hmm.
What did my family think or my friends think? So some of them, so it's a good question, because sometimes our fear of what people think prevents us from doing what we really want to do. And so because I was so clear and confident that this is a change I have to make, I wasn't really asking people for permission or for validation. I just say, this is what I'm doing. And so I didn't get a lot of negative responses from my family, or at least not to my face. Nobody, nobody said to me, "You're
Hmm.
crazy," and what are you doing, and why are you giving up this, all this time you've put into this career, and what do you mean you're going to do Reiki? Like, I really did not get any responses like that at all,
Hmm.
because I was coming from an authentic place in my heart, right? I was like, this is what I need to do, and regardless of what anybody thinks, I'm doing it.
Having that strong conviction really, puts you in a good place, right? So that it avoids the negativity that can easily start to creep in. when you come in it with a place of, I'm not sure, what do you think? Or, you need permission from other people, and that is really not authentic. So I love that you had that authentic power. And you just knew the direction that you wanted to go, and then having that great clarity. Clarity is so key in really creating a life that we love. You need to know where you want to go in order to create that, right? And
Yeah.
to have that vision moving forward. So, I think that so what we'll do is we'll take a break, and then we'll get right into some of the experiences and examples that you've had with helping your clients to really live a more meaningful and purposeful life, and to get rid of some of the challenges and the fears that so many people are dealing with. So stay with us. We'll be back here on Sauga 960 after this. Well, hello and welcome back to the Mindset Mentor. I'm Tania Kolar, and my special guest today is Shona Lauzon, who is a Reiki master teacher and new decision therapy practitioner. So, we're going to talk about new decision therapy, what it is, and how it can really help you to, get some balance back into your life and realign with the self, find your purpose and your meaning, and also to heal, some of the trauma, the anxiety, the stress that is stored deep down in the body. So we'll delve into that, and we'll just continue the conversation. Shona, it's such a pleasure to have you here, helping to shed some light on, how we can take control, gain some clarity, which you've given us a great example through transitioning from corporate life to the healing world as well in your own experience. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you, Tania. Thanks for having me and for this great conversation. So new decision therapy was something I was introduced to when I was going through some healing work of my own. And just to give you a little bit of background, I was living in Toronto at the time, and I was single. This is in the early 2000s, and I dated every jerk in Toronto.
Oh,
Like, I'm
so
not
you had
kidding.
your jerk radar, yeah?
I did. If there was a jerk, I needed to date him, and I did. And so I could see I was on this merry-go-round. Like before, we talked about being on the treadmill, and so it felt like this. I was on this merry-go-round, this treadmill of just dating the wrong guy, like just jerks over and over again. And I thought, I don't know how to get off this merry-go-round. So I had a friend who had talked to me about new decision therapy, and I could see how it had transformed her life and her relationships. And so I went for my first session. And in my first session, so new decision therapy is, just to give people an idea of what it is, it's a form of therapy that uses kinesiology or muscle testing to uncover where in the body you are storing unresolved guilt, anger, or regret, which is always associated with a story about a person. So it's about an experience you had in your past with a person, and you're hanging on to this, the energy of that experience is in your cells. It's in your body, and it can unconsciously be influencing many of your decisions in life, unconsciously. So you don't know that this story, this baggage you're carrying with you is really having an effect on how you see the world and on the decisions you're making. So I went to this therapist to talk about my relationship issues and to say, please help me stop dating jerks. Like, please.
You've had your fair share and you're done. Yes.
Yeah, like I need to stop. Somebody stop me. And so, of course, it ended up what came out through the kinesiology. So new decision therapy also works on the premise that your body knows the truth. And the muscle testing allows us to bypass the mind and the story and the denial that, the story the mind wants to tell you. And it gets right to the truth. So the truth was that all these issues I was having with relationships with men was actually rooted in my experiences with my mother. Like, isn't it always about your mother?
Yeah, and so, poor moms out there.
Poor mom. And so that wasn't at all where I thought this therapy was going to go. I didn't, I was thinking, well, I didn't know we were going to be talking about my mom and past trauma from my childhood, but that's what came up. And what the body was indicating was the root of my problem. And so new decision therapy then takes you through a process of forgiveness. So I was able to, with the help of my lovely new decision therapy therapist, I was able to forgive my mother, and really in a way that freed me from this story I was telling myself about myself, and allowed me to really, like, I freed myself from the story, and I was able to have a much healthier relationship, not only with her, with my mother, but it started to change the way I interacted with men and the kind of men that started coming into my life. And that alone was so profound. But I also, in releasing through forgiveness, through forgiving my mom for the things that had happened, I felt like a huge weight had been lifted off me, like physically lifted off my body. And I could see on my walk home from this one session, I could see the energy rising up through the trees. It was like I literally saw the world in a whole new way
Mm.
after this one session.
That's
And
amazing to
yeah,
have that precise clarity immediately after.
yes. And I don't believe that happens for everybody in their first new decision therapy session.
Hmm.
I can't promise that, but that's what happened for me, and that's why I learned how to offer the technique to others. And I also want to clarify, because there's I hear just in conversation and also out there on social media, very different perspectives on forgiveness.
Hmm.
And I do want to say here that some specific things about forgiveness, because I believe you can forgive anyone for anything. There's nothing that's technically unforgivable. And the reason is because when you're forgiving someone, you're not condoning what they did. You're not saying it's okay that you abused me, or whatever it might be, whatever happened. You're not saying it's okay. You're releasing yourself from the burden of the story. You're saying, I want to be free, and I want to go on with my life and live a happy, healthy life. And so I have to put this thing down. I have to put it down. And that's what the forgiveness allows you to do. And it's something you offer yourself. So it's something you offer yourself for your own healing. You don't have to think of it as, oh, I'm going to heal that person who assaulted me, or I'm going to heal these people who did this terrible thing to me. That's not what it's about. It's about healing yourself through the act of forgiving.
And that's huge, and that's truly, a game changer when you can release that the resentment, the hatred that you have for somebody, or even revenge, right? Some people are really so locked into revenge because they can't forgive the situation. And life happens, and there's many situations that people face that are extremely challenging, and you
Yeah.
wish that nobody had to go through those
Mm-hmm.
experiences. But I would agree with you that you can forgive anyone for anything. And it is a matter of, freeing yourself from the trapped emotions, and allowing, it's like when I believe that when you don't forgive someone, you allow them to control your emotion. And so for me, I've done a lot of work on forgiveness, and, it took a while to get there. Right. But, I just decided, I made that choice that I will take my power back, and I choose to forgive as a matter of me and moving forward. So I love that, that's something that you incorporate as well, and you were able to release and incorporate forgiveness so that you could have better relationships across the board, right? Not just with your
Mm-hmm.
mother, but and the men in your life. But it does trickle down. So it's such an important element, having that strong forgiveness factor. And I know it's difficult for a lot of people. So I'd love to
Mm-hmm.
talk to you about how is it that you are able to guide people to get to that point of being able to forgive when they come in a place where they are just not willing to really even go there. So what is the process, and how do you determine what somebody's blocks are? Is there a specific sort of protocol that you go through and to determine where those blocks are, or do they have to come in with sort of an understanding of some of their history?
No, those are great questions, Tanya. Thank you. So for example, when I went to my first session, I wanted to fix my relationship issues, and I wasn't really, I didn't have a clear sense of who I needed to forgive, or even if I did need to forgive somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew that here's my issue, and how can you help me? So part of the process with new decision therapy is we look at, we use muscle testing. So I'm using the arm to muscle test. So I'm testing for, it's the same sort of muscle testing they use for allergies or sensitivities to food. It's the same idea. So I'm getting a baseline of your energy, and then I'm just asking the body who you might be, through a series of questions, who you might be ready to forgive. So I'm looking at where in the body you have unresolved guilt, anger, or regret. And then we go to the mirror, and we also do mirror work with the eyes. So we're narrowing down a person. So if it's in the right eye, it could be somebody of the opposite sex. And who do you know that you might need to forgive that's male? And so you could say, well, I think it could be Bob. And the muscle testing will tell us if in fact Bob is who you need to forgive. Mm-hmm. And we'll keep going until we find the person that you are ready to forgive. So the body tells us where we're going to start. And sometimes when you forgive someone from your past, it undoes all the issues you currently have with other people that are just a continuation of that story. Mm-hmm. So in forgiving Bob, you might be undoing that bad relationship or that difficult relationship you have with your boss, or with a good friend, or right. So it's undoing the pattern as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because so many people don't are not able to see the connection and the pattern. So sometimes it is really helpful to have somebody else looking in who can really help to guide us on that journey, because these patterns can last such a long time, even decades. So it just becomes so habitual and normal and familiar that it really is hard to piece that, out. So it's really good to be able to help people through that process. And I can imagine that a lot of people are very surprised at what comes up. And it's because sometimes there's these little things that happen in life to us, and you think, hey, that wasn't a big deal at all. But then when you really look at it, it was so impactful, and it affects every aspect of your life. And it could be so trivial, seemingly trivial, but a deep emotional pain that's connected to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's because one of the other things we do in the process, it's called clearing denial. Mm-hmm. So we use some meridian points, like acupressure points, to clear denial and make a clear connection between for the body, for the muscle testing. We're trying to get clarity. So denial is a natural state. It's part of grieving, but it's also part of how the mind protects about how damaging the situation was, or in denial that it even happened, or in denial about the role a person is playing in our lives. And so clearing denial is crucial, with no judgment. We all have denial around something, just to clear it for exactly that reason, is that sometimes we just can't see, for good reason, we can't see how damaging or hurtful certain situations are for us.
Mm-hmm. I think that's why the body also sometimes, or the mind, will allow that expression to come through in a different way, whether
Yeah.
it's through visions or, dreams, just to help the body try to get rid of all of that. But when you suppress and you deny, it leads to a lot of problems down the road, right? So I think the sooner that you can access the cause of some of the emotional issues, I think
Hmm.
the better it is, for you. So it's really important to sort of start releasing some of that stress, because of course it's like the chemical change in the body also, creates a different environment that is not going to be conducive to living your best life. A lot of people experience the aches and pains, and so is that something? Is that part of the process of new decision therapy? Does that give the practitioner like yourself a clue? So if someone comes in with, chronic back pain or shoulder pain or neck aches, is there a connection to the emotional aspect through the new decision therapy?
Oh, that's a really interesting question, Tanya, because definitely um, we do know that our mental thought processes manifest in the body, right? So our beliefs and our mental struggles manifest as pain or discomfort in the body, as dis-ease. And so that is not necessarily part of the new decision therapy process, but it's certainly something that I would bring in if somebody was having chronic back pain or suffering from very severe asthma or something like that. Then I would also be looking at where in the body it is and what the energy is there, that
Mm-hmm.
what's the block in energy. And so new decision therapy can certainly help with clearing that, although that isn't directly part of the technique.
Mm-hmm.
But my work as a Reiki master and teacher, though, does allow me to have a sense of where the energy is housed that connects to different parts of the body.
Mm-hmm.
So working
Yeah.
with the chakras and the energy centers. So yes, I would bring that into a session if somebody came with a chronic health problem or chronic pain.
Yeah, because again, there are a lot of people who are suffering, through pain, and
Mhm.
it is definitely connected to our emotional body and the physical body, right? So it is important to, to alleviate and get the help and the relief that we can in all aspects, so that we can live that aligned life
Mhm.
and optimize our overall well-being and health. So we're going to take a break and we'll continue when we come back. Here, listening to the Mindset Mentor, I'm Tania Kolar, and my special guest today joining me is Shona Lauzon. She is a Reiki master teacher and a new decision therapy practitioner. And we will continue when we come back. Welcome back to the Mindset Mentor on Sauga 960. I'm Tania Kolar, helping you cultivate a life you love. My special guest joining me today is Shona Lauzon, and she is a Reiki master, a teacher, and also a new decision therapy practitioner. And we're going to just continue the conversation and talk about how we can release some of the trauma in the body, the tension, the emotional blockages that so many of us have. And, just before we took a break, Shona, you were talking about also using Reiki in conjunction with the new decision therapy to really sort of, pinpoint where some of the aches are coming from, the chakras, what chakra in the body. So tell us a little bit more about that and how it works and how you're able to determine, what those blockages or where they're coming from.
Okay, so so new decision therapy will help me pinpoint sort of three key areas in the core through around the heart area where we're storing unresolved guilt or anger or regret or and all the variations, all the iterations of those emotions. But knowing in my study of Reiki, learning about the chakra system, and which are energy wheels or energy centers, there's 7 of them throughout the body from the crown down to the root. Each of those energy centers is connected to different vital organs in the body. So they maintain the health of the body. So, for example, the throat chakra right here, obviously or sort of predictably, it helps maintain healthy vocal cords. It's also connected to the ears. It's connected to issues around speaking, speaking clearly, speaking your truth. It's also connected to addictions. So anything we put into our body through the mouth, such as smoking, cigarette smoke, or alcohol, that the center for helping to alleviate that is in the throat chakra, for example. So if somebody was coming to me for new decision therapy, but they also had um, chronic pain, back pain, for example, I would be looking where the back it is and what chakra it aligns with clearly. And that would allow me to get a better sense of where, what is the emotion that's lodged in there with that pain in the body. And always with new decision therapy and with Reiki or with approach to healing, it's always done with compassion. Mm-hmm. So how can we, so sometimes in Reiki, if I have a client who has come in with a very specific physical ailment, I have them sit and go into the body and actually connect to that part, the pain in the back, or the pain, the asthma, or the migraine headaches, or whatever it is, and really give it some just gentle attention and ask that part of the body and that pain what its message might be. And sometimes clients who wouldn't consider themselves psychic or in any way get these phenomenal answers from their body. They hear something, or they get an inkling, or they get a feeling, and they are like, this is about this, or this, it's really weird, but it just told me this. And so then I can use that information. We can use it together, the client and I. As we're working on the table doing Reiki, we can work towards removing the energetic imprint of the pain and what's behind it. So I wouldn't want to claim that I could cure the that I could cure the reason why it's there, mm-hmm. but I can give the person the experience of what it's like not to have that pain. Mm-hmm. We remind the body, oh, this is what it feels like to breathe, or this is what it feels like not to have a headache all the time.
Wow, that's huge. That's so huge, because if you're constantly in that cycle, you don't remember what it feels like, right? So it's hard to move beyond that.
Yeah, because you don't know what you're trying to get back to, because you've been so long, especially if it's chronic, you've been so long with that pain or discomfort or challenge, that just reminding your body for a few minutes or a few hours, this is what it feels like to be free of that, is all it needs to sort of reset things and to help you go back, find your way back to that health.
Yeah, recalibrating that full state, essentially, right?
Yes.
And what feels better and right, so that we can gain different clarity, right? And truth, really, essentially. So interesting. I'm wondering as well, because I think a lot of people right now are thinking, well, this sounds wonderful, and they would be interested in trying new decision therapy, maybe even with Reiki or not, one or the other or both. Can this be done virtually? Because we're living in a world where a lot of people are still cautious, obviously, and not going out to visit too many people. So can it be done in a virtual capacity with effect?
Yes. So thanks for asking that. The Reiki definitely can be done over a distance, over any distance. And so can new decision therapy. So the way that I would do the new decision therapy with a remote client would be to have a surrogate with me. So I would have somebody with me who would be a surrogate for the person at a distance, and just both people would have to agree to that dynamic. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So the client would have to agree they were willing to have a surrogate, and the surrogate would agree they were being a surrogate for for the client.
Yeah, interesting. I love that. And in fact, that might be an option that some people actually may prefer in the sense that, they may not be comfortable. So maybe an initial sort of thing. But I know for you, you do prefer to see people, as one-on-one. I just think there's a different connection with that. But
Yes.
it's nice to be able to have options and what people are, comfortable with.
Yes. And as you said, especially now, so I can do a distance session if that's, well, obviously, if somebody is far away, um, out of the city or the province or the country, or if they simply prefer, for all the reasons, to be in the comfort of their own home, then we can do it that way too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. So, when you are working with people, do you use intuition as well to help sort of determine where some of these blocks are coming from, and then to, test it through the muscle testing?
Yes. So part of it, some of it is intuitive
Hmm.
for sure. So I can sometimes get an intuitive sense of something unspoken or something not being said,
Hmm.
that I can ask the client about. That sometimes helps us uncover an issue or uncover exposed. Um, and also, I really I think it's important to note that with the new decision therapy, compassion is a huge part of the process. So in order for the person to gain the healing benefits of the forgiveness, they're having compassion for themselves.
Hmm.
They're also finding compassion for the person who wronged them or harmed them. Uh, so trying to understand that person's story, or why that person might have done what they did, and that can be a very nuanced part of the process in trying to understand, uh, how can I really feel compassion for this person who did such terrible things, and why do I want to feel compassion for them? But in order to forgive them, you have to, and it's hard to feel true forgiveness if you're not able to offer some understanding to the person who's done you wrong. And again, you're not ever saying it's okay that you did this. You're not saying that. You're saying, I'm looking at you as a human being who has your own trauma and your own issues, and that what happened here is about you.
Hmm.
And I'm going to try to have compassion for what's happened to you that would cause you to be this way, to treat me in this way, or to do this thing. And then ultimately, with the forgiveness, you're looking to free yourself. You're setting yourself free and acknowledging, one of the final steps in new decision therapy is acknowledging that you really want to live. You want to live a life that's full of joy and purpose and meaning. And you're sort of saying goodbye to this story about this person, and you're moving on.
Well, and essentially you're making a new decision, right? So that's
Yes.
exactly,
Yeah.
the point. So I love that because every moment is a choice, and we're always deciding, and we can undo some of those choices that are not serving us, so that we can truly live a life that, is more meaningful and it feels fulfilling, right? Instead of holding on to a lot of the regret, the anger, the shame, the guilt, all of those emotions that can really weigh the body down in so many ways. So, unfortunately, we're out of time. So, I want to say thank you so much, Shona, for being here and sharing your knowledge with everyone. And quickly, if you can let everybody know how they can find you.
Sure. I am on Instagram at ravenhearthealing.com. I have a website, ravenhearthealing.ca, and you can email me at ravenhearthealing@gmail.com. And I'd love to hear from you and answer any questions. So if you have any questions about what we talked about today, please just reach out.
Fantastic. I love it. Well, thank you again for being here. It's been a pleasure. And thank you for explaining what new decision therapy is. I think a lot of people are not familiar with that particular therapy, but I think it's important to explore our options and see what is available.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Tanya, and for all your great questions. I really appreciate it.
Ah, thank you. Well, it was easy. It was a fun conversation, fascinating topic. And that's your mindset workout for today, everyone. Make sure you tune in next Tuesday at 1 p.m. for your next mindset workout. And remember that you need to work on your mindset, right? You want to strengthen and condition. We know that we go to the gym and we're working out our biceps, our triceps, our abs. And it's the same thing with your mindset. It needs a good workout so that you can cultivate a life you love because you deserve it.